Tom and I were talking last hour a little bit about the injury report. We'll see if coaches adhere to it. I thought that was interesting. Tom's sense was, and I want to get yours because I haven't asked you this yet, that it's almost like he's a commissioner of a league that's a dead man walking and he knows it. The sense I got was that he understands that other than Clemson and Florida State, everybody's kind of pissed at him.
You didn't hear the point where he said he feels better about the league over these last 5 months than he has at any time since he's been the commissioner. You missed that. You
heard it. I didn't
were you
believe
looking at your phone?
I didn't believe
But then he came back and said, "This is not hyperbole. This is true. This is what I really believe." So you didn't. Yeah, I don't think you caught that.
I caught it.
Well, I mean, no, the question was, and it was actually a really pertinent question, was, you acquiesced. I mean, at the end of the day, Florida State and Clemson got what they wanted. And for that to be the case, then the other schools probably didn't get what they wanted, which is clear.
Yeah.
And the question, I think it was David Glenn in North Carolina, a longtime reporter, and he said, in the other conferences where this has happened, specifically the Big 12, you might do a deal like this where Texas gets everything they want. And then Texas ends up leaving to the SEC anyway, and the other schools bail the other conferences because everybody's miserable. So, what makes you think this is actually a long-term solution? He said he thought this is different.
Two-pronged.
And one of the reasons he thinks this is different is because he's talked to the people at FSU and Clemson, and they say they want to be here.
Sure.
And he believes them.
So I'm glad that you did exactly what I wanted you to do. I served you the softball, and you did it.
I'm with him. I believe all of it. I think it sounds great. And when's lunch?
I ask you this. Do you think that a little bit there at the end, it really sounded an awful lot like he's saying football serves basketball? That was weird.
No.
He talked about how he thought that, they got to be much better in basketball.
He did acknowledge that.
He's right about that. He acknowledged that you can't go 2-11 in your bowl games either if you want to be respected as a football conference. But I thought that was fascinating. The crown jewel of our championships is basketball, quote unquote. And I think he's talking about the NCAA tournament, obviously, in that situation. But still, I don't know. I got the sense that he thought that it was vitally important that the ACC renew their reputation in the world of basketball at a time where we all know football is king.
No, it is. I think it's fair to say that. I don't think this is the beginning of a long-term pivot to where it's going to be a basketball-only league, like it's going to be the Big East or something. But I do think, there's real money in basketball, and it's become a disaster. And, when the ACC network was started, and I thought it was foolhardy at the time, we all did, but they talked about how one of the big things that was going to be a selling network, bring money for the ACC network, was that the league is so good in basketball. And then by adding Syracuse and Louisville and, Pitt, and, it's just going to be this great basketball league. Well, that has not happened. To the contrary, the SEC's decided, we care about basketball too, and we're going to eat your lunch. And the Big Ten obviously is what they are. So I think it's more of a, oh my gosh, we don't even have what we thought we had. Like what was a cornerstone, we have to repair that too. But no, I think he clearly understands that football is the number one priority, and he outlined some of the things they're doing this year, like they're going to go on location with their show. The Huddle show is going to go on location to the game of the week every week this season. They are demanding more resources going to football from all these schools. So, I think, football is still the number one priority, but I think they realize that basketball used to be something they could lean on, and now they can't anymore. But as far as, the future of the conference, he can say whatever he wants. At the end of the day, those other schools are clearly not happy with what they got, or the deals that were struck. And then Florida State and Clemson clearly were looking for something to keep them happy in the short term. There's no way he believes that Florida State and Clemson still aren't going to leave
but they want to
at
be
the first
here.
opportunity.
They told him.
So, but, listen, we've been coming to these things for a lot of years. The commissioners say what they're going to say, but obviously there's not a lot of belief in that.
I thought it was an interesting choice to talk about dominating Friday nights.
That was interesting. That was an interesting choice of words when I think a lot of people feel like you shouldn't be playing on Friday nights. And you're only dominating because you're the only one willing to play on Friday
You're
nights.
the only conference that sells out enough to have every one of your teams, or
Right.
12 of your 17 teams, have to play on a Friday night, including one at 10:30 at night on the East Coast for a Friday night game. 2 Friday night games for Florida State. Friday nights have always been associated with high school football, so it's a weird choice when you tell the world we're going to dominate, and our partners at CW are going to help us do it. That was a weird flex. Not only are we going to be the best conference on Friday nights, but our CW friends are going to help get us there.
There's a lot of things he says in those addresses. And again, Jim Phillips is a nice enough guy. You want to sit here and just beat him up for the league he has to represent. But some of the things, that comment, the comment that the ACC is one of only 3 Power 4 conferences that have done this or that. It's like, bro, there's only 4.
There's only 4.
So
3 of them have done it.
You're only one of the 3. Not really the flex you. I don't know. When they're writing the talking points, I don't think they listen to how they're going to sound. Because he had like 10 of those. We're one of only 3 Power 4 conferences to do this. It's like, okay.
Buddy,
in the top 75%.
I jotted this one down because I thought if you or I were his speechwriter, we might have edited this. He said, I truly believe there isn't a more exciting collection of football teams in the country than here in the ACC.
Oh, boy. I think I may have
come
had
on,
a stroke
brother.
at that point.
Let's redline that one. We can skip over it. There's no need. He stuttered when he said it.
He's like, he stopped the teleprompter. Who put that in there?
Why would I say that? I don't believe. Nobody believes that. No. Why am I saying this?
The video present. The only thing I was happy with, we got about a 3 or 4 minute video presentation before he spoke.
Florida State was actually in it.
It's a hype video, and that was my first question: is Florida State actually going to be in it?
Yeah.
And the first one was just Osceola and Renegade, and I was like, okay, that's safe. And then I was thinking, I hope this isn't one of those where it's like every highlight, like on the draft this year, where every highlight is somebody smoking Florida State.
It wasn't.
It wasn't. Thankfully,
they're very careful about that now. They could have done that. Yes, there were plenty of highlights with old players chasing
players running past.
chasing the 9 conference games. It sounded like to me that he all but said, if the SEC goes to 9, we're going to 9.
It sounded like he intimated that. First, he said, there's been no appetite to go to 9. But then when he did say, if the SEC goes to 9 and we go to 9, which made it feel like he's saying it might happen in concert. But then the first thing he said was, you just worry about the rivalry games, which we all know. I mean, if that happens, it's going to be hard for. It's probably going to be hard for Florida State and Florida and, to keep playing.
I feel like Florida State and Florida always would. It's just the game, like this Alabama game would go away.
For sure.
The Georgia game coming up, that's got to go away if you play 9 conference games. You're not, if Notre Dame's not in your league, So I feel like that would go away. And it's tough because it's a weird thing for him to celebrate the 26 non-conference games that ACC teams played this year. I was telling Tom last hour, it's got to be the oddest thing to stand up there and tell everybody that you think the ACC is suited in an elite status in college football, and yet celebrate how many games you're playing out of the conference.
Based on who you're playing out of the conference.
And you have to. I think it's very obvious. One thing I will give him credit for, this is the bout of realism that I think needs to invade his skull more often, which is that he knows the league's not strong. And so he clearly, it seems like it's a mandate from the commissioner's office to schedule tougher games. He's telling
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, he's telling all of these athletic departments, look, if you don't want to see our teams get screwed again by the committee, who he has great respect for, then you're going to have to schedule teams out of conference like SEC and Big Ten teams.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Well, and the problem here, there's actually a big banner down the hallway that says, toughest non-conference schedules of all the conferences, because they're, so that's definitely a talking point this year is that they have scheduled up. But the problem is you're supposed to be one of those top conferences, and the only way to have the toughest non-conference schedule is because you don't have the toughest conference schedule. Like you're playing the other great teams that are not in your league. If the Big Ten was only playing a bunch of ACC schools, they would not have the toughest non-conference schedule.
Right.
And then the other problem with that is that's the best you can do right now with the league the way it is right now. The best they can do is schedule those tougher games. The problem, and I think somebody asked him was, well, what happens if the SEC does go to 9 games and the Big Ten's already there, and what if you can't schedule those games anymore? Then what do you have? You're already in a weaker league, and now they won't play you anymore.
Oh, yeah.
What do you do?
I thought that's very much what that question was about. Like, hey, man, you're about to get squeezed again.
Right.
And yet, I know it's his worldview, and I actually appreciate his worldview because I think he believes it. He wants people to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. And it's very gullible. It makes me sad that people won't, but they don't. And we have a lot of evidence to that end. What did you think he said this more than once, and every college football fan cares about this, so this is why I'm bringing it up. The College Sports Commission, he's talking about with the rev share and real NIL, not pay for play. He said communication, implementation, and compliance. And he said, look, I know that as it stands currently, you can choose to play outside the box, the rules, which all of these teams that we seek to compete against are going to do.
Right.
He seems to understand that, and yet is reliant upon them to just do the right thing because college football needs it.
Well, he wants
Congress
to get involved
because he knows they're not going to do that.
Yeah, and that's really the only salvation. And and again, I agree with what you're saying. Jim Phillips does believe, he believes in the mission of college athletics. He even talked specifically about he doesn't want football players to be called athletes or any scholarship athletes to be called athlete or called employees.
Right.
He wants them to be called student athletes because that's what they are. They're not real employees yet. And he wants that to stay defined and stay separate from, pro sports. But, it is where we are. But at the end of the day, he knows, though, it's the only way it can be saved is if Congress comes in and provides protections where they're not going to be sued, every other day by somebody else. But who knows if that's actually going to happen? So it's all hope and prayer that that's going to work out. But that's the same thing with like NIL and hope that people are going to abide by it and the injury reports and hope that people are going to
he's always
provide the injury reports.
Hopefully Greg does the right thing for the betterment of football. Yeah. Hey, buddy, Greg's not going to do the right thing for the betterment
of business. Hope usually isn't the best approach, but I don't know what else he can do. That's all he's got. They're at a position of weakness. They're not determining, the best he can do in terms of like the college football playoff. He talked about access to the playoff and all that. The best he can do is navigate with these other conferences and try to put pressure on the SEC and the Big Ten to do the right thing by the sport. But at the end of the day, he can only do what he can do. He's a minor player. He's not the power broker.
Talked about the need for all programs in any league to show restraint, to show for the betterment of the players and for the institutions of higher learning. I'm with you, Jim.
Yeah.
But it ain't going to happen. And it's what's so depressing right now for the average college football fan listening to this. They're like, well, we can all want a lot of things. It's been shown time and again that's not going to happen.
A good question would have been, I didn't ask it, but a good question probably would have been to say, okay, what do you say to your coaches in this conference and ADs at this conference when there's so much money on the line for all these schools, when they know other schools are not going to abide? What do you tell them to do? Are you asking them to fight with one hand tied behind their back? What's realistic? What do you tell these coaches when they tell you about all the tampering, all the things that are going on at these other schools, or schools already reports being way outside of the $20 million cap? What do you do if you don't go fight in the mud? What else can you do? What are you telling them? And I don't know what he would say, but that's the question. It's one thing to have that as your goal or your hope, but there's also the reality of these coaches that have to go try to win games to save their jobs and their staff.
It stinks when your commissioner has to repeatedly say things like that he's appealing to fairness and inclusion and in the hopes that the committee who he believes is honorable and
doing the right things.
I don't know if you agree with me on this, and maybe I would be I'd probably be a poor politician because of this, but I don't get why, after you've been shown time and again that they are not upstanding, they don't adhere to some sort of
moral ethical code.
At all. Why do you then, as a commissioner, because here's what I would, it's not only would I not appeal to that, I would not then go an extra mile to say how I think they're all good people and how I've been in those rooms and they're all very fair down the middle. And why does he do that? Does he think that is going to provide cachet for him in the future? This may be unanswerable.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's a naivete that it was really annoying.
Yeah, I was just thinking back to, remember Mike Tranghese when he was like the Big East commissioner? I think he might have gone to the AAC or something, but he always took the opposite approach. He threw fire bombs at everybody, grenades at everybody. I can't believe he ripped the ACC when Swafford raided the Big East. Mm-hmm. And he took that approach, and I don't know if that worked either. I don't know if there's a good answer, but no, that's definitely Jim Phillips' approach. He is a guy that's going to try to work behind the scenes. He actually got asked that very specifically about, there's been some conferences and commissioners that have come out politically and made statements about what they want, about what they're not happy with in the playoff discussions. And he said, that's just, I don't feel like that's helpful. I'm always going to try to work behind the scenes. It's not just his style. I don't think it's better or worse than anything else, but I also don't know that Tranghese had any success either. I mean, it's,
I think you
play,
at least
play the cards you got.
I think you at least come across as having like a backbone.
That you're fighting for your conference.
Yeah, you're going down swinging, what's happening.
Well, it's the same thing because he got asked about the ESPN again. And
our partners have always been great. I thought it was great. That question was actually very well worded because the guy said it's not just you call them equal partners. And
it doesn't appear to be that way.
It doesn't appear to be that way, and that you are often, treated as a secondary. And he said, it may feel that way to you.
It may feel that to me. I know. Like that time Greg Sankey got a half hour on College Game Day when they screwed Florida State.
Yeah.
Maybe that time.
But they're fair-minded, and we're on equal footing. They're wonderful partners.
Yeah, I think that's the stuff that I think probably angers fans and makes people in media feel like he's not being genuine. It's all disingenuous. And why are we listening to if you're just going to say that stuff?
Yeah, we don't feel like you're really fighting.
Right.
Because if you believe that, then you're really gullible. Right. And you're not the guy that should be representing the league anymore. But if you don't believe that and you're saying that, then you're disingenuous, which makes you even more unlikable. So